Without further ado, I think we all watched Friday night.
Yeah. Do you want me to save it for what are we doing here?
No. I don't think you do. You save it. You need to get stuff off your chest.
No, look, I think it's not a long rant or ramble or rave. I'm not going to I'm not going to rant and rave. That's one of the classic YouTube sprays of all time. The Teddy Bears picnic spray. It's not the day that the Teddy Bears had their picnic. I'm not going to rant and rave. You should watch that.
But now that we're on YouTube, I think you should rant.
Well, I'm not going to. I'm not going to rant and rave because today isn't the day the Teddy Bears had their picnic. But Friday night, it wasn't an abomination, but it was an indictment on the football department. And largely the coach, and therefore everyone that sits under the coach as well. The loss, it wasn't about lose. We lose all the time. It's the way we lost there was a lack of effort and there was a lack of understanding of who to man. There was a lack of game plan completely, which is now I think fourth or fifth, whatever year it is of Brad Scott. That is literally just the core of your responsibility as a coach is to drive some sort of game plan, even if you don't have good players, and then ensure that effort at least is somewhat consistent. You're allowed to have some down days, but certainly not round one in an Essendon Hawthorn clash with 75,000 people. You'd have to. There should be a very, very, very clear pathway to Brad Scott being fired sometime in the first 5 to 10 rounds. Unless it gets turned around really quickly. You can't lose by 60. You can lose by 60 points. You can't lose the way we lost by 60 points.
What you're saying. Yep.
We lost. You say that Port gave up easy goals. I haven't watched those. We gave up. It looked like a training drill. At some points, there were 5 or 6 Hawthorn players with not 10, 15 metres of space around them. And then a lack of just complete effort. The uncontested possessions, were just so lopsided. The clearances, the tackles. You go into a game with a bit of just excitement with new players and then you do that. I think, it wasn't like Essendon, I just sat in the bar and just had beers for the whole second half or I could just see Hawthorn players high-fiving on the screen in the background. But yeah, it sort of got into a point where it's some people defended Brad Scott, including myself. Some people didn't. But if that's what is being put out as the product of the Essendon Football Club, the coach pretty much has to go immediately. It's not year one, it's not year two, it's not year three. You've had time. You've either connect with the players, you either have developed a game plan. There is no excuses now. It's not about the rebuild. No one expected to make finals this year. And if Hawthorn beat us by 10 goals and they were just scintillating, then that's a different 10-goal loss. I'd argue last year we lost by 24 points in round one against Hawthorn with a much worse list playing. And here we are a year later with hope and with Scott moving things, in his words, in the right direction, and we went so far backwards. Now, you do obviously need to see what happens next week, but it's more than that. How can that happen in round one for a team that is so starved of success? If you're a team that has had up and down success, you can have up and down levels of effort. If you're a team that has never had success, it's almost inexcusable to have that level of effort and non-understanding of a game plan. So I think it's just an extreme level of disappointment. It's not even anger anymore. It's just sadness. The group chats were just how is the year already over? How are we so shit? It wasn't even there's no expletives. I don't know what stage of grief it is, but it's a really sad stage. Because at least anger, there's some hope and there's some emotion behind it. Now it's just why?
Yeah, and you get a bit numb.
You get a bit
numb and a bit sort of accepting of the performances that get put out there. And you also, I feel as though it's almost like you don't want to have hope. Because once you have hope, they can keep letting you down.
Yeah.
Whereas if you don't have any...
Yeah.
It's almost easier.
Yeah, and we had
emotionally.
We didn't have ridiculous amounts of hope, but we had more hope than we've had for a while because of the draftees, and a year on of Kako, Caddy, etc. I don't know. We're at a loss. as a supporter base, and when you're at a loss as a supporter base and you're not getting the effort on the field, like, unfortunately, as easy as it is, it now is at a point where it's too far into the tenure of a coach where the same things have happened over and over. It's like, it's the fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, like fool me 6 times. Like, when are you going to stop fooling me?
The hard part is, I think, I would argue that you're only 2 years into a rebuild. And one of the problems is with that is that what has been evident, particularly over the last 7 years, particularly since all of these draft concessions and whatnot came in, it's very difficult to rebuild now.
It is,
because your access to top talent is not the same.
But just look at Richmond against Carlton. Look at Richmond all of last year. I think that's the easiest barometer to compare Essendon to. Is you have a team that on paper should be winning a lot less games and be in a lot less games, and yet they challenged in 50% of games last year, and they should have won on Thursday night. They had more inside 50s. If they're hungrier than us, then something's wrong somewhere. And unfortunately, like, that is, like, we're discussing the key responsibilities of a coach, and he's just not delivering on the key ones, and then he's making excuses in the press conference. 3 more weeks, and then if I was running the club, which I hope I will be by 2030, I would be stepping in immediately and getting rid of the coach.
Interestingly, I was listening to Crunch Time on SEN, and a couple of the things they said really piqued my interest. The first one is, it seems as though Welsh has actually reinforced his position since he's got there. He's made someone on the board, like Solomon is now an assistant coach. The CEO is now the person who was the vice president.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's not going out necessarily to bring people in. Now, I guess the question is that a good thing or a bad thing? It could be good, it could be bad. But I think what I would say to you is there are 4 to 6 teams in the bottom tier now. There's Essendon, Port, Carlton, Richmond, North, West Coast.
That didn't change. That we didn't think that we weren't in the I guess that's, you talk about the journey and the destination. Yeah, we're talking about the journey here. The destination is the same. Last night, Friday night, whether we lose by 60 or we lose by 20, but the journey has to be different, because the only way you can move forward is if you're putting things in place. Like, things don't happen as a click of the fingers ever. You don't just go, 3 years down the track, no matter what we do, we're going to go from bottom 6 to middle 6. There is a process to follow, and there has to be checkpoints along the way. We're hitting none of those checkpoints. So something's wrong, and something needs to be fixed. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, and just go, hey, time.
But I would say this though, by the same token, the other thing that you've done a lot in the last 15 years is just sack coaches. Would you agree with that?
No, I wouldn't actually. I would say.
How many coaches have you had?
We've had enough
since Matty Knights.
Yeah, but we hired horrific coaches like Ben Rudden. Like, we've given Brad Scott quite a leash here. Like, I actually think we have gotten to a point where we've actually given too much. And I don't believe, like, you talk about this whole concept of on-field stability. What are we stabilising? 60-point losses without effort? Like, the concept of stability matters when your team is close. And then it's like, then it would make sense that that's the final piece of the puzzle, or an important piece of the puzzle. But what are we this concept of stability? We have stability for a team that can lose by 100 points every single week. Like, that's not a stable environment that we need to remain stable. That needs to be blown up. So this whole thing about keeping, you got to keep the stability there. No, I disagree with that when the baseline isn't achieving what it needs to achieve. I think if you're close, and if someone like the Bulldogs is a great example. Last year, best 9th team ever, still people calling for Bevo. That's where I understand. It's like, well, people are like, you know what, maybe a new voice makes sense, or that's a good time to have stability. Because why just blow things up when you're actually pretty close and there's a lot of metrics in your favour? There isn't a metric that you can point at and say, hey, Essendon's trending in the right direction. So there's nothing to stabilise. So just blow it up. And do it. And to your point about whether it's either herdy, which now some people who are anti-herd, you bring it in, or the real thing is you probably bring in a new, fresh face that can actually relate to the younger generation.
It can't be Herd. There's no way in the world
it won't happen. It's going to be
if you bring back Herd, that'll put your football club back 15 years.
Yeah, but from where? From being rock, like you can't go further than rock bottom.
No, but you're not. This is the thing, right? You're not.
We're not far. I can see it. I can wave at rock bottom. I can almost, if I had a longer arm, I could shake the hand of rock bottom. We are so close. I'm looking at it right now. If I had another chisel, and you guys
He's actually looking at my North Face backpack, which is right apparently rock bottom.
You guys know I have 2 chisels at home. If I had a third and a fourth chisel, and they, the first 2 weren't as shaved as they were and not as chiselly as they used to be, I could continue and get very close to rock bottom with where we are.
Essendon or your personal life?
Well, it's both.
That's huge.
No, I she's spot on. She knows my emotions better than me. I'm going through turmoil in my personal life. I am, and I'm going through turmoil with Essendon. So suddenly now, what is my purpose?
But for this podcast, we'll stick to Essendon.
Yeah, we'll stick to Essendon. But if anyone, mailbag this week, not for Essendon, send me your thoughts on what my purpose is as a separate thing, because I'm lacking a vision and a purpose internally, and it's bleeding into clearly the football club as well.
I'm calling it first. Pet enters the manosphere.
Oh,
no, that's an
ugly term.
That's as far away as I want to be. I just want to be alone in hibernating and just wake up in 6 months and maybe it's all better. That's it. Anyway,
You need Tim Tams, man.
I will have some tonight.
Thanks for watching From the Outer Podcast. If you could like and subscribe, it helps us a lot to continue to create all of this amazing content that you know and love. See you next time.